Imagine this. A little boy lets go of his father's hand and runs straight into the street. A luxury car is racing toward him, death only seconds away. But then, a stranger, a janitor no one ever noticed before, throws herself into danger to save him. And what the boy whispered after. It froze everyone's heart. You won't believe what he called her. The late summer sun blazed over a quiet neighborhood in Dallas, Texas, where wide avenues cut through rows of tidy houses and sprawling oak trees cast fleeting patches of shade on the sidewalks. The air shimmered with heat, cicadas buzzing faintly from somewhere in the trees. It was the kind of afternoon when most families stayed indoors, blinds drawn against the sweltering air. But Vincent Dawson had promised his son, Ethan, a walk to the corner park. Ethan was just 4 years old, bursting with restless energy that no heat wave could suppress. He clutched his father's hand as they strolled, his small sneakers slapping against the concrete. His hazel eyes lit up every time a car passed, every time a dog barked in the distance. And then, in an instant, everything changed. A golden retriever, playful and tail wagging, darted across the street just ahead of them. Ethan squealed with delight. Before Vincent could tighten his grip, the little boy yanked his hand free and bolted after the dog, his tiny legs pumping furiously. "Ethan, no!" Vincent's voice cracked with raw panic. His heart lurched as he watched his son run straight into the busy avenue. At that very moment, a Porsche came screaming down the road, its engine growling like a predator on the hunt. The car was moving far too fast for the quiet street, the driver oblivious to the disaster about to unfold. On the opposite sidewalk, Lauren Fisher had just stepped out of a boutique, her arms heavy with shopping bags. She caught sight of the unfolding horror, the small boy in the middle of the street, the Porsche hurtling toward him, the father frozen in shock. Her pulse skyrocketed. The bags tumbled from her hands, scattering across the pavement. She didn't even notice. Her instincts surged faster than her fear. In a split second, Lauren made her choice. She ran. The horns of cars blared as she sprinted across the lanes. Drivers slammed their brakes, swerving, shouting curses out their windows. Her sneakers pounded against the scorching asphalt. The air reeked of burning rubber. The Porsche was only yards away now, its polished hood reflecting the harsh sunlight. Time seemed to slow. She could hear her own ragged breaths, the blood pounding in her ears. She lunged forward, arms outstretched. Lauren's hands closed around Ethan's small shoulders, just as the car loomed above them. She yanked him into her chest and threw herself sideways, twisting her body to shield him. Together, they rolled across the pavement, the heat of the asphalt biting into her skin. Behind them came the deafening crash. The Porsche swerved violently, tires shrieking, before smashing into a lamppost. The impact was like thunder splitting the air. Metal crumpled, glass exploded into shards, and sparks burst in brilliant showers. In seconds, the entire block went dark as the transformer blew, plunging the street into eerie silence. When the dust began to settle, Lauren was sprawled on the pavement, her body curled protectively around Ethan. Her arms were scraped and raw, her knee bleeding freely, but the boy beneath her was untouched. His chest rose and fell rapidly, but he was safe. "It's okay, sweetheart. It's okay," Lauren whispered hoarsely, brushing a strand of sweaty hair from his forehead. "You're safe now." Vincent finally reached them, breathless and pale. "Oh God, Ethan." His knees nearly buckled as relief and terror collided in his chest. "Are you hurt? Please say something." Before he could scoop his son up, Ethan turned in Lauren's arms and pressed his small hands to her face. His voice, trembling yet strangely certain, broke the silence around them. "Thank you. Mommy, Daddy in heaven told me you would come to save me." Vincent froze, his words caught in his throat. For 2 years now, Ethan had lived without a mother. Yet here he was, clinging to a stranger with the desperate trust of a child, calling her mommy as though it were the most natural thing in the world. Lauren's breath hitched, but she didn't let go. Through the sting of her wounds, through the ringing in her ears, she managed a gentle smile for the boy. Don't worry, little one. I've got you. The sound of sirens began to pierce the heavy air, drawing closer. People were already gathering on the sidewalks, whispering, pointing. A few had their phones out, recording. The driver of the Porsche staggered from his ruined car, shaken and pale, shouting to no one in particular, "Is everyone all right? Did I hit anyone?" Vincent's gaze flicked from his trembling son to the woman who had just risked her life for him. His mind spun with questions, confusion, gratitude, and a sudden, unexplainable fear of what this moment might mean. For the first time in years, his son was calling someone mommy, and that someone was a stranger. The wail of approaching sirens grew louder, echoing between the brick storefronts and quiet suburban homes. Red and blue lights reflected off the shop windows as an ambulance and a police cruiser screeched to a halt at the corner. The gathered crowd parted quickly, murmuring as paramedics rushed forward with medical kits. Lauren was still kneeling on the pavement, cradling Ethan against her chest. Her breathing was ragged, her arms scraped and raw, blood soaking through the tear on her jeans at the knee. Yet she stayed perfectly still, her body instinctively shielding the boy, as if nothing else in the world mattered. "Ma'am, don't move," one of the paramedics said, crouching beside her. "We need to check you both." "I'm fine," Lauren murmured, brushing the dirt from Ethan's hair. "Please, just make sure he's okay." Vincent knelt beside them, his chest tight, his hands trembling as he reached for his son. "Ethan, buddy, are you hurt?" His voice cracked under the weight of fear, but the boy barely looked at him. Ethan's small arms clung to Lauren's neck as if letting go meant falling into danger again. "I'm okay, Daddy," he said, muffled against her shoulder. "Mommy saved me." The word hung in the air like a stone dropped into still water. Several people from the crowd gasped softly. Vincent felt his stomach twist into knots. His son's voice was steady, innocent, and absolutely convinced. "Mommy." Vincent whispered, shaken. "Ethan, she's not." Lauren raised her eyes to Vincent's. They were hazel, flecked with green, filled with pain from her injuries, but also with a strange calmness. She shook her head slightly, silently asking him not to correct the boy right now. One of the police officers stepped forward, jotting down notes. "Sir, ma'am, we'll need your statements." That was one hell of a save. He glanced at Lauren with a mix of awe and concern. "Ma'am, you should really get checked out at the hospital." Vincent nodded quickly. "Yes, she has to go." "She's bleeding." Lauren tried to brush it off. "It's just scrapes. Nothing serious." But Ethan lifted his head, his lip trembling. "Please don't go away, Mommy. Please don't leave me." The words sliced through Vincent like a blade. His son, who had cried himself to sleep countless nights calling for the mother he lost, was now clinging to this stranger as if fate itself had delivered her. Lauren, still wincing, stroked Ethan's hair. "I'm not leaving you, sweetheart. I promise." Paramedics gently helped her to her feet, supporting her as she limped toward the ambulance. Ethan's little hand refused to let go of hers. Vincent followed, his mind racing. How could this woman, this stranger, have stepped into their lives so suddenly, and yet already seemed to hold a piece of his son's heart? Inside the ambulance, Lauren sat on the stretcher while a nurse cleaned her cuts with antiseptic. She flinched at the sting but kept her eyes on Ethan, who sat stubbornly by her side, holding her hand as if it were his lifeline. Vincent hovered by the door, torn between gratitude and unease. "I want to cover all of her medical bills," he told the nurse firmly. "Whatever it costs, send it to me." Lauren shook her head quickly. "No, sir. That's not necessary. Anyone would have done the same thing." "Not anyone," Vincent replied quietly, his eyes fixed on her. "You risked your life for my son." The nurse handed over a clipboard for Lauren's basic information. "Name, occupation?" she asked. Lauren hesitated for the briefest second, then answered softly, Lauren Fisher. I work as a janitor at Dawson Enterprises downtown. Vincent's head jerked up. Dawson Enterprises? Her cheeks flushed. Yes, I've been working there 2 years. Evenings mostly. I clean the offices from the bottom floors upward. Ethan tugged at his father's sleeve. Daddy, I know her. She's the lady with the blue rag. Vincent blinked. What? She's always cleaning the floors with a blue rag. I talk to her when Miss Regina falls asleep at the desk. She told me Mommy's in heaven, watching me. Ethan's eyes lit up, innocent and trusting. She said Mommy turned into a star and sends angels to watch over me. Lauren looked down, embarrassed, as though she'd revealed too much. Vincent's chest tightened. For months, his son had carried the silent weight of a mother's absence, and he hadn't known that this quiet woman had been the one to comfort him in those lonely hours. How had he never noticed her in his own building? How had he missed the bond quietly forming between his son and a woman who, until today, had been invisible to him? As the ambulance pulled away, Vincent realized this was no coincidence. This woman hadn't just saved Ethan's life. In some strange, inexplicable way, she had already been part of it. The emergency room at Dallas Memorial bustled with activity that evening. Nurses hurried through the bright corridors, the scent of antiseptic sharp in the air. The doors swung open as the paramedics rolled Lauren in on a stretcher. Ethan refused to let go of her hand, his tiny legs working double time to keep pace. Vincent followed close behind, his face tight with worry. He hadn't felt this helpless since the day his wife passed away 2 years earlier, leaving him alone with a boy too young to understand what loss really meant. Inside the trauma bay, a nurse gently guided Ethan toward a chair. "Sweetie, let us take care of her for just a minute." "No," Ethan cried, his arms wrapping tighter around Lauren's waist. "I have to stay. She's my mommy now." The words cut through the room. A few staff exchanged surprised glances. Lauren winced not from the sting of disinfectant on her wounds, but from the intensity of that title. Her voice was low, trembling. "It's all right. Let him stay, please." The nurse sighed but relented, and Ethan climbed onto the edge of the bed, his little hand gripping Lauren's like a lifeline. The attending physician, a middle-aged woman with kind but sharp eyes, examined Lauren's knee. "You're lucky. No fractures, just deep abrasions. No stitches needed, but you'll be sore for a week." Vincent stepped forward immediately. "I'll cover every expense, doctor's orders, medication, everything." Lauren shook her head, forcing a small smile. "You don't need to, Mr. Dawson. I told you, anyone would have done the same." "Anyone?" Vincent repeated softly, his gaze fixed on her. "No, most people would have screamed, maybe called for help. You threw yourself into traffic for a child you didn't even know." Before she could answer, Ethan tugged at her sleeve. His big brown eyes, glassy with unshed tears, searched her face. "Mommy, you'll stay with me now, right?" Lauren froze, her heart aching at the innocence in his question. She turned her eyes to Vincent, unsure how to respond. For a moment, their gazes locked, his full of confusion and fear, hers filled with quiet sadness. Vincent cleared his throat awkwardly. "Ethan, she's not your..." But Lauren cut in gently, her hand stroking Ethan's hair. "Sweetheart, I'll be here as long as I can. You don't have to be afraid." Ethan's little shoulders relaxed, and he leaned against her side with a content sigh. As if those words had patched a hole in his heart, the doctor scribbled notes on a clipboard and turned to Lauren. "We'll just need some information for the records." "Place of employment?" Lauren hesitated. "Dawson Enterprises downtown." "I'm a janitor there." Vincent blinked. "That's my company. My office is on the 20th floor. Lauren flushed, lowering her eyes. "I usually work from the bottom up. I reach your floor last, late in the evening." Before Vincent could process this, Ethan piped up innocently. "Daddy, I told you I know her. She's the lady with the blue rag." When Ms. Regina falls asleep at the desk, I talk to her. She tells me Mommy is a star now, sending angels to take care of me. Vincent's chest tightened painfully. He had thought his son's loneliness was invisible, hidden behind bedtime stories and toys. But it wasn't Vincent who had soothed those empty spaces. It was this quiet woman, unseen and unnoticed until fate shoved her into their lives. Lauren's eyes glistened with restrained emotion. He just looked so lost sometimes. I couldn't ignore him. I didn't mean to overstep. Vincent swallowed hard, torn between gratitude and guilt. He hadn't even noticed that his son had found comfort in a stranger's kindness, while he himself had been too consumed by work and grief. Overstep? He murmured, shaking his head slowly. You saved him long before today. Ethan leaned against Lauren's shoulder, his eyelids drooping as exhaustion finally caught up with him. His tiny voice mumbled one last plea before he drifted toward sleep. Mommy, don't leave me again. Lauren froze, tears stinging her eyes. Vincent stood silently at the foot of the bed, his heart split in two. He didn't understand how or why, but somehow his son had chosen her. And for the first time in years, Vincent wondered if this stranger, this woman who had walked into his life, covered in blood and dust, was meant to change everything. The next morning, the pale light of dawn slipped through the blinds of Vincent's apartment. He had hardly slept. His mind replayed the accident again and again, the screech of the Porsche, the shower of sparks, Lauren's body hitting the pavement as she shielded Ethan. But louder than all of it was Ethan's little voice, calling her Mommy. At the kitchen table, Vincent sat with a mug of untouched coffee cooling in his hands. Across the apartment, Ethan was sprawled on the living room rug with toy cars, but even from there his small voice carried, Daddy, when can I see Mommy Lauren again? Vincent's grip tightened on the mug. She's not your... He stopped himself, exhaling. Correcting Ethan now felt cruel, almost pointless. We'll see her soon, buddy. She needs rest. Ethan didn't look up from his toys. She said she won't leave me. Mommy stars don't lie. The words pierced Vincent's chest. His wife, gone too soon, had once whispered similar promises to their boy. And now another woman, a stranger, was carrying that burden. Later that day, Vincent returned to Dawson Enterprises. The skyscraper towered over downtown Dallas, its glass windows catching the sunlight. As he entered the marble-floored lobby, his thoughts raced. He had walked these halls 1,000 times, but now he realized that somewhere in this building, every evening, Lauren had been quietly pushing her cart, mop and rag in hand, unseen by executives like him. By mid-afternoon, he found her on the 20th floor. She was crouched near the corridor, wiping the polished floor with her familiar blue rag. The rhythmic swish of cloth against marble echoed faintly. Lauren, Vincent said softly. She startled, straightening too quickly, nearly dropping the rag. Her cheeks flushed. Mr. Dawson, I didn't expect. How's Ethan? Is he all right? He's fine, Vincent replied, though his voice was tight. He hasn't stopped talking about you. Lauren's eyes softened, then flickered with sadness. He's a sweet boy. He reminds me of... She hesitated, swallowing back something painful. Reminds me of what I lost. Vincent stepped closer, lowering his voice. Can I ask you something personal? Lauren hesitated but nodded. Do you have children? Her gaze shifted toward the window where the skyline glowed in late sunlight. I had a baby once, but he was born too early. He didn't survive. Her words trembled as though every syllable reopened an old wound. Vincent's throat tightened. In that moment, he understood she hadn't just saved Ethan out of instinct. She had saved him because deep inside, she still carried the love of a mother with nowhere to go. Before he could respond, the ding of the elevator broke the silence. The polished doors slid open, and with them entered a presence that made Vincent's jaw tighten. Yolanda Vrew, his late wife's mother, swept into the corridor. At 62, she was still imposing, dressed in a tailored suit, diamonds glinting at her ears. Her sharp heels clicked against the floor as her cold eyes zeroed in on Lauren. "So it's true," Yolanda said, her voice icy. "This is the woman." Lauren blinked, confused. I'm sorry?" Vincent stepped forward defensively. "Mother, not here." But Yolanda ignored him, turning her gaze on Lauren like a hawk circling prey. "You saved my grandson, yes? And now he calls you mommy." Her lip curled faintly. "How convenient." Lauren's face paled. You never what? Never encouraged him? Never let him cling to you?" Yolanda's voice cut through the hall. "You think I don't see what this is? A janitor from nowhere suddenly appearing in our lives, working in my son-in-law's building of all places? Too many coincidences." Vincent's fists clenched. "Enough, Mother." But Ethan's words, from the day before, came rushing back to him. "Mommy, don't leave me again." Lauren's shoulders slumped, her eyes glassy, but her voice was steady. "Mrs. Abreu, I never meant to intrude. I only comforted a lonely child when no one else noticed." Yolanda scoffed. "A lonely child who now believes you're his mother. That's not comfort, that's manipulation." The accusation struck Lauren like a blow. She gathered her supplies quickly, her hands trembling. "I'll leave. I don't want to cause trouble." "Lauren, wait," Vincent said, stepping toward her. But she was already pushing her cart toward the elevator, her head bowed. When the doors closed behind her, the silence between Vincent and Yolanda was suffocating. "You don't see it, do you?" Yolanda whispered fiercely. "She's dangerous. She'll rip apart what's left of this family. I won't allow it." Vincent's chest burned with anger, but doubt coiled inside him. Lauren had saved his son. Yes, but why did Ethan cling to her as if destiny itself had sent her? And why did she appear in his life exactly now when his son needed her most? For the first time since the accident, Vincent felt a shadow of fear that his mother-in-law might be right. And yet, another fear loomed larger, that if he let Lauren slip away now, Ethan's fragile little heart might break beyond repair. 2 days later, Vincent sat alone in his office on the 20th floor, staring out at the Dallas skyline. The city stretched endlessly under a pale blue sky, but his thoughts were clouded and heavy. On his desk lay untouched contracts and reports, papers he would normally review with sharp focus. Now they blurred together, meaningless. The memory of Ethan's small voice haunted him. "Mommy, don't leave me again." And alongside that, Yolanda's biting words. "She's manipulating him. She's dangerous." Vincent rubbed his temples. He had always prided himself on being logical, rational. But nothing about this felt simple. A stranger had saved his son's life, and now his boy clung to her as though she were the missing piece of his world. That afternoon, Vincent made a decision. He found Lauren again, this time mopping a corridor near the executive lounge. She looked up in surprise, her blue rag folded neatly in her hand. "Mr. Dawson," she said, straightening quickly, her expression wary. "I didn't expect." "Please," Vincent interrupted gently. "Call me Vincent." She hesitated, then nodded. "How's Ethan?" "He asks about you every hour," Vincent exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "Lauren, I have a proposal. One I hope you'll consider." Her brows furrowed. "A proposal?" "Yes." He shifted closer, lowering his voice. "Ethan has grown attached to you in ways I can't ignore. I'd like to hire you not as a janitor, but as his special caregiver. A few hours, a few days a week. You'd spend time with him, keep him company when he's at the office with me." Lauren blinked, stunned. "Mr. Dawson, I'm not qualified. I clean offices. I've never worked as a nanny." "You've already done more for him than any professional could," Vincent said firmly. "You've given him comfort, security. That's something you can't put on a resume." Her eyes lowered, conflicted. "What would you pay?" "Double your salary. 3 times if needed." "Money isn't the point." Ethan is. Lauren bit her lip, silent for a long moment. Finally she whispered, "Let me think about it." Vincent nodded. "Of course. But don't take too long. He misses you terribly." That night, Lauren sat in her small apartment on the south side of the city. The room was dim, the hum of the refrigerator filling the silence. Across from her, her friend Talita sat cross-legged on the couch, watching Lauren wring her hands nervously. "So let me get this straight," Talita said, raising an eyebrow. "The millionaire boss wants to pay you a fortune just to spend time with his kid." Lauren frowned. "It's not like that. He only wants what's best for Ethan, and Ethan." Her voice cracked slightly. "Ethan looks at me like I'm already his mother. And you like that, don't you?" Talita's tone was gentle now. "Because you lost your own baby." Lauren closed her eyes, swallowing back tears. "It scares me. What if I'm only filling a hole in my own heart? What if I let Ethan down?" Talita leaned forward, taking her hand. "Or what if this is God's way of giving you another chance? A boy who needs love and you. A woman with so much love still to give." Lauren's chest ached. She wanted to believe it, but she also feared the danger of hope. The next morning, Lauren dialed Vincent's office number with trembling fingers. "Mr. Dawson, Vincent," she corrected quickly when he answered. "I've thought about your offer. I'll accept, but only if it's really what's best for Ethan." Relief washed through Vincent's voice. "It is, thank you. You've just given him the best gift he could ask for." That afternoon, Lauren arrived at the Dawson residence. The moment Ethan saw her step through the doorway, his face lit up brighter than Christmas morning. "Mommy!" he cried, running into her arms. She lifted him effortlessly, hugging him tight as his laughter rang through the house. Vincent watched from the foyer, his chest swelling with something he hadn't felt in years, hope. For the first time since his wife's death, his home echoed with warmth again. But in the shadows of that joy, one question gnawed at him: would his mother-in-law, Yolanda, ever allow it? Because if there was one thing Vincent knew for certain, it was this: Yolanda Brew did not surrender easily. The weeks that followed brought a rhythm Vincent had never thought possible again. For the first time since his wife's passing, the Dawson household was filled with laughter instead of silence. Ethan woke each morning asking if Mommy Lauren was coming that day, and on the afternoons when she arrived, he greeted her with the boundless joy of a child who finally felt whole again. Lauren slipped into the routine as if she had always belonged. She read Ethan stories on the living room rug, baked cookies with him in the kitchen, and walked hand in hand to the park. Vincent often stood back and watched, torn between gratitude and something deeper that frightened him, a stirring in his chest every time Lauren smiled, every time she soothed his son with nothing more than a gentle touch. Yet peace in the Dawson home was fragile. One evening, as the golden Texas sun dipped low and painted the windows with amber light, Yolanda arrived unannounced. She swept through the doorway like a storm, her diamond earrings flashing, her sharp eyes scanning the room. Ethan was curled against Lauren's lap on the couch, half asleep after an afternoon of playing. "There," Yolanda said coldly, pointing at the scene. "Do you see, Vincent? She's taken your wife's place." Vincent straightened, his patience thin. "Mother, she hasn't taken anything. She saved Ethan's life. She's given him happiness again." "Happiness?" Yolanda's voice was icy. "Or dependence? He calls her Mommy. Do you not see how dangerous this is? A janitor of all people, manipulating her way into our family." Lauren flinched but didn't release Ethan's hand. Her voice was quiet but firm. "I never asked him to call me that. It's what he chose. Because he misses his mother." Ethan stirred at the raised voices, rubbing his eyes. "Daddy, why's Grandma yelling?" "Don't be mean to Mommy Lauren." The words struck like lightning. Vincent saw Yolanda's face blanch, but she quickly masked it with scorn. "You hear that? He's confused. He doesn't know who his real mother is anymore. Vincent's voice hardened. His real mother is gone. And Lauren isn't replacing her. But she is here. She is helping him heal. If you can't accept that, then you're the one confusing him. For the first time, Yolanda faltered. Her lips parted, but no retort came. She looked at Ethan's frail frame, the way his tiny fingers clutched Lauren's hand as though letting go would unravel him. For a flicker of a moment, guilt flashed in her eyes. Days later, Ethan fell ill. The stress of the accident, the whirlwind of emotions, had taken their toll. He grew quiet, listless, refusing to eat. At the hospital, doctors spoke words that chilled Vincent to the bone. Emotional trauma. Depression in a child this young can be dangerous. By Ethan's bedside, Lauren never left his side. She wiped his forehead, whispered lullabies, coaxed him to sip water when he refused food. One night, as machines beeped softly around them, Ethan stirred and whispered in a trembling voice, "Mommy Lauren, promise you'll never leave me again." Tears blurred Lauren's vision. She bent close, her lips brushing his hair. "I promise, my love. I'll never leave you." Vincent stood in the doorway, watching the scene unfold, his chest heavy with both sorrow and awe. He had never seen such devotion, not even from the expensive nannies his mother-in-law had paraded before him. In that moment, the truth crystallized in his heart. Lauren wasn't just saving his son. She was saving him. Weeks turned into months. Ethan grew stronger, his smile returning like sunlight after storm clouds. Yolanda, faced with the undeniable bond between her grandson and Lauren, slowly begrudgingly softened. There were still sharp words, tense silences, but the edge of her resistance dulled with each day she saw Ethan's happiness. And then, one crisp Saturday morning, Vincent gathered his courage. At the very park where Lauren had first told Ethan that his mother was watching from the stars, he knelt beneath the oak tree. Ethan, bouncing with excitement, held a small velvet box in his little hands. "Mommy Lauren," he said proudly, "Daddy and I have something for you." Lauren blinked, startled as Vincent took the box and opened it. Inside gleamed a modest diamond ring, simple yet elegant, just like her. "Lauren," Vincent said, his voice low but steady, "you came into our lives when we were broken. You gave my son hope again, and you gave me the strength to believe in a future I thought was gone. I know our story is complicated, but will you marry me? Will you be part of our family for real?" Lauren's hand flew to her mouth. Tears welled in her eyes as she looked from Vincent to Ethan, whose grin stretched ear to ear. She whispered, her voice trembling with joy. "Yes, I will." Ethan leapt into her arms with a squeal of delight. "Now we're a family forever." Vincent slipped the ring onto her finger, his heart pounding with relief and happiness. He kissed her hand, then pulled both her and Ethan into an embrace beneath the oak tree, sunlight filtering through the leaves like a blessing. For the first time in years, Vincent felt whole. His son was safe, loved and laughing. His heart, once hollow, was full again. And Lauren, the woman who had run into traffic without hesitation, had become not only the savior of his child, but the heartbeat of a new beginning. A family built not by blood alone, but by courage, loss, and the kind of love that finds you when you least expect it.